Hello neighbor, thank you for joining me at Crafting in My Corner. I'm Alicia Dolan, and today's video is the Stampin' Sunday video for October 25th, I think, from October 25th. Anyway, it's Tuesday and it's supposed to be Sunday's video. So I am going to turn the camera around and get started, but if you find this video helpful, if you could like and share the video, then I'll know. Or if you just comment that whatever part of it is helpful for you. That helps me to know what videos are most helpful for people while they're making cards. So I'm going to turn my camera around and get started. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for joining me. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you for joining me. So pretty much no matter where you're watching from, thanks for watching. Okay, I am going to turn the lights on and get started. I need to adjust my camera, looks like a little bit again. All right. Okay, hopefully you can see our card for today. This one is really cute. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll post the all of the supplies and the measurements in the YouTube video descriptions later. And I'll post a link to the Stampin' Up page where you can order the supplies to make your own. Also, anytime if I post a card that has current supplies and you would like to order a kit to make that card, then just send me a message and let me know. So here are the pieces for today's card, and if you do order a kit, know that any of the die cuts will be cut for you, except for the ones that would have to be stamped first and then cut out. So if you don't have the same die, then you could always cut them by hand or use a circle punch or whatever you have at home that's about the same measurement. Or you could always adjust and use whatever you would prefer. So our piece of basic black cardstock, I made a note for myself and I left it over here, is 4 1/4 by 11. So today's card goes this way, where most of the cards that I've made recently open the other direction. So it's probably the second most common type of card that I would make. So the piece of basic black measures 4 1/4 across the top by 11, and then we're going to score it right here at 5 1/2, and I've already scored mine. I don't know if you can see that mark. So we're just going to fold it in half. And we'll use our bone folder to make sure that crease is nice and steady. And then we've got a piece of Balmy Blue. That's going to be our next layer. That measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then this next one, I want it to be just slightly smaller than the Balmy Blue. So we went with 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. So it's going to go on like this. We have a piece of basic white to stamp on, and this one is 1 inch wide, and it doesn't matter how long it is because we're going to trim the end so that we get this shape. I don't know what you'd call that shape besides maybe a trapezoid. I'm not sure. Then we have a piece of Balmy Blue that is, I did not measure it. Let's see. Looks like 1 inch. So this one is not 1 inch. It's 7/8 of an inch. And this one is 1 inch, and it's by, let's see, 4.5, but we're going to trim it, so it wouldn't have to be that long. You just need a piece. And then I have a little square to stamp on and a scallop circle that's cut out. So I'm going to set this card aside, and actually I'm going to cut one more piece of basic white for the inside of the card, and I am going to cut that 4 by 5 1/4. So anytime I make a card that has a dark color cardstock, or if I know that it might not be easily seen, I like to put a piece of white on the inside so that it makes it easier to write on it. I don't generally stamp the insides of my cards. I leave them blank. But sometimes I'll go back later and add something inside here. Okay, so this one is for the inside. And let me get my Stamparatus because we're going to need that today. And I will show you how I did this. Okay, so let's see if I can. I don't know if I can zoom in, can I? I don't think so. Hopefully you can see. I stamped this is just a piece of grid paper that comes with the Stamparatus. So I stamped my image on here so that when I'm making my card, I can plan it out a little bit. So up here in the corner, I have a little mark where I measured that this piece of white paper would go for the front of the card, and I'm going to put my magnet down. And you'll notice I have 2 of my magnets out today, and so I'm keeping them far apart on my Stamparatus. I don't want them to snap together because sometimes they will break. So we're going to use Tuxedo Black Memento ink, and our first set that we're using is the Jar of Flowers Photopolymer stamp set. So underneath my piece of grid paper, I have my foam mat that comes with the Stamparatus. I've already put this set of flowers here on my plate. I have it all measured out. So if you haven't done that yet, the first thing you're going to want to do after you put your piece down here and mark out the edges is measure where you want this piece to be, and you can put it right on the paper, close the plate, and it will pick it up. And then when we stamp, it's going to be right where we want it to be. So I'm opening my Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm going to tap it. Oh, you know what I forgot? One thing I forgot. Since I have taken my stamps out of here, I'm going to set my stamp case underneath the open side of this Stamparatus. And now that just holds my plate level so that when I'm inking up my stamp, I don't have to worry about it being flat. So that way it helps me ink it up evenly. Alright, and I think that's good. I don't know where to put that so that I don't get my fingers in it, I guess. Alright, we're going to close it down and press gently in the center and around, and then lift it up. Now I am going to take this piece out. I'm going to stamp it off once, just because the Memento ink lasts a little bit longer than the other kind. And then I'm going to take my Stampin' Scrub, my Simply Chamois. I'm sorry guys. off with my words this morning. I'm going to wipe off my stamp. And then I'm actually going to take this plate right off because I have both of my plates set up today to stamp the jar of flowers. So on the second plate, you'll see I have the mason jar, which is this jar right here. And I'm just going to slide that plate in there. And I can put my front card layer right back where it was because I marked the corner where it should be. And I'll put my magnet back down. Now I wanted to show you, I stamped one of these images on a little piece of copy paper from my printer. And what I'm going to do is just sit that over top of the first image I stamped. And I'm going to move my magnet so that it holds it in place. Now I'm going to ink up my jar. And, oh, I missed a little spot there in the corner. Okay. And I'm going to close the plate, press in the center, open it back up, and then, oh, let me press it one more time up there by the top, because I think I missed just a bit. Yep, I sure did. That's what's really nice about the Stamparatus is if you do miss something and you happen to notice, you can go back and stamp in just the same spot. So when I take away this little piece, then I get my jar looking like the flowers are coming out of it instead of stamping the top of the jar over top of the flowers. So now I'm going to take this piece out. I'm going to stamp this off again. It did move a little bit compared to the last time I stamped it, it looks like, but it still looks nice under the flowers. I'll grab my chamois, wipe my stamp off, and I did finally rinse out my chamois yesterday in the sink, and I couldn't believe how much the water turned colors while I was rinsing it. Alright, I'm going to pull this off because I'm not going to stamp another jar, but I am going to stamp another flower. So I'll go back once, and we're going to take the inside piece and put it down. Actually, yep, right here where that corner was. And I'm going to put my magnet down here. And now this is where I'm going to use my second magnet. So on this piece of paper, I stamped the image and then I cut out, using my circle die cut, the spot that I wanted my flower to be on the inside. So I'm going to line it up on that corner, and I'm going to use both of my magnets this time. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp using the Balmy Blue. Sometimes these are a little tricky to open. There we go. Alright, and this is the image that we want right here, so I'm just going to ink up that corner. And remember, when you're inking up your stamps, you just want to do lots of little taps. I had actually forgotten about this technique until someone sent me video and reminded me about it. And it's called the spotlight technique. Okay, and so we're going to press that down. And I want to make sure I get this really good, because that way, we'll get a nice round image. Let's see. And it looks like my paper is a little too thick. Sometimes before I've used Post-it note paper, and I think that's a little bit thinner, but this will work. Okay, so we're going to take this off and set that to the side. And next, we're going to take our little piece of white and we're going to put it in the same spot. And this time, the magnet needs to go along the bottom. And we're going to ink up our stamp again with the Balmy Blue. I shouldn't have closed that. Seeing how much trouble I had opening it the first time. And the more you use these, the more you'll get used to opening them. And I think they actually loosen up a little bit as you do. Okay, so now that's inked up. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments and I will answer them as soon as I can. But sometimes I can't answer while I'm taping for several different reasons, because I don't always see the questions, because the way my camera is set up, it's up a little bit higher than where I can see when I'm sitting down. So I try to stand up every once in a while and see if you have any questions. Okay, so here is our flower. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that in just a moment. I'm going to actually take this plate off and just set it aside. And then I want to stamp my sentiment before I move on to anything else, because that way I can put my stamparatus off to the side. So I like to line my paper up with my grid lines. It just helps me to get a nicer, kind of a straighter image most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. Okay, and I've put my sentiment on Stampin' Block H, and this one is from the Peaceful Moments stamp set. This is probably one of my favorite stamp sets. I like all of the sentiments in it, and I use this one a lot. I think the artwork is pretty, and I just really like all of those scenes. Okay, so we're going to tap our ink to our stamp, turn it over, and when I lined up my stamp on here, I lined it up with the grid paper, and then I lined up the edges of my block with the grid paper as well, just to give myself a little bit of an advantage when it comes to lining up my words. And I think they're crooked. Wait, let's see. They are just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to cut that off and I'm going to try again, because I do have enough space. So I'm just going to put that in my trimmer. And I may find a use for that later. I'm just trying to get my image nice and straight. So here we go. I'm going to try it one more time. Sometimes I go through quite a bit of paper before I get a nice straight image. Okay, so I'm going to try again. line that up. Oh, and that time I was off the edge. Okay, so that first one might have been the best of the two. Okay, let me cut one more piece. That's that size. So now, I guess you can see why it took me a little extra time this time to get my card ready for the video. Sometimes it seems like everything goes right along the way you plan, and other times it definitely does not. So okay. All right, one more try. Let's see. Maybe if I stand up. Sometimes I have to stand up to get things right. Hopefully my head's not in the way. I hope you guys can see around me. Okay. There, that's better. Okay, so that was the trick, right? I had to stand up to stamp this time. But it's all okay. All right, so now we can start assembling our card. We do have one more piece to cut out, and I will show you how we do that. Let me just move a few things to the side because we're going to use the Big Shot, which is similar to the new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So now I am going to move all these things out of the way. And we will cut that out first so that you can see how it's done. Okay, so this is the Big Shot. Oh, thank you, Kathy. It helps to know if you guys can see or not. One time I made a whole video and my head was in the way the whole time, and I had to do it over. So it helps to know. Okay, so this is the Big Shot machine. It's a die cutting machine. And the dies that we're using today are from this Layering Circles dies. So these are the two that I used. I don't know if you can see, but this one has a little bit of a scallop edge, and this one is just a nice round circle. So the circle is the one we're going to use this time. And I just wanted to show you real quick, if I can. So it comes with all these circles inside there. I always like die cutting machines because they are pretty easy. I know it's an added expense, but it really does make a big difference when you're crafting. Okay, now I left my piece underneath, which was not wise. Okay, so we're going to put this, it has a platform and then a clear plate, acrylic plate, and then a second one. And as you can see, my plates have been used quite a few times. They're definitely not new. So we're going to line up our circle so that it covers the part of the flower that we want to spotlight. And then we put the second plate on top. And I like to squeeze them together and push them in until the handle starts to turn. And then I crank it the rest of the way through. Because I find that if I don't do that, sometimes my, sorry, it made the whole table wiggle. If I don't do that, sometimes my die will scoot around in there. You can get a magnetic plate for them, so then it's less likely for them to scoot around, but I don't have that yet. Okay, I'm just going to move this off to the side because we're only using it once today. And I don't usually use it on this table because it wiggles too much. I usually use it on my sewing table, which is a lot more sturdy than this foldable table. I can't think what it's called today. Okay, so now we're going to assemble our card. Let me grab all of the pieces. And we'll start with the easy part first. So this is going to go on the inside. And I actually meant for this flower to be up in the corner like this. So I don't know how I must have measured wrong. So I'm not going to put this inside just yet. Well, no. I might use that for something else. Alright, so I'm going to take this piece of white, turn it over, and put my adhesive on the back. I'm using the liquid glue. You can use whatever adhesive you prefer. This is just my favorite because before it dries, I have a little time to adjust my pieces in case they're not in quite the right spot where I want them to be, or in case I try to put them on that piece I didn't mean to put them on. Alright, so we're going to attach that to the Balmy Blue. I must not have had enough coffee yet this morning because I'm having lots of hiccups in my card making today. I don't think it's because I'm trying to hurry. I don't feel rushed. We're going to take our sentiment and we're going to trim it. And our sentiment says, thinking of you with all my heart. I didn't read off all the sentiments on that set, but if you want to check them out, I can post a link to that in the description. And then we're going to trim this so that it has a nice edge. And I'll just set this to the side. I can use that later. Alright, and now next, this is a Stampin' Pierce mat, and this is what I used before I had the Stamparatus to stamp on this side. But for piercing, I like to turn it over, and I don't know if you can see, but it does have some little poke holes in it. So we're going to put our card down like this, and I'm going to take my scissors. Now you want to be really careful when you do this because you don't want to hurt yourself. But I'm going to poke two kind of long holes on either side. So on the left side, I went really close to the jar. And then on the right side, I'm going to go out a little ways because on the right side is where we're going to tie this bow, and I don't want it to be too close to our spotlight area. So I'm just going to poke my hole out here. And you want to make sure that you get all the way through, but you don't want to really poke too far into your Stampin' Pierce mat. So then I just take my scissors and wiggle them through a little to make sure my pierce marks are big enough to stick the ribbon in. And we're using the gray granite ribbon, which is really pretty, and it has just a little bit of sparkle to it. So I'm going to go in the right pierce mark and pull the ribbon out the back. And then I like to, before I stick it in the other side, just kind of straighten it out a little bit. It's probably not going to matter once we get it all tied, but okay, so now we've got a good amount coming out the back, probably enough to tie our bow. So we're going to take this part, and you may have to get a little bit of that cardstock off of there before you poke it through. In fact, I'm just going to lay it down and hold it over the edge, and then I can poke it through with the end of my scissors. Just enough so that I can grab it from the other side. And pull it through. And then we're going to tie our bow on this side. So I like to turn mine upside down. I cross the right over the left and then pull it over to this side as much as I can. I make a loop on the left, and I like to come around the back and go through. And then hopefully I can stick my pinky fingers inside the bow to tighten it a little bit, but I don't want to tighten it all the way until I get my ends where I want them to be. So I'm going to pull that a little bit, mess with my bow again, tighten it up a little more. And if you know a better way to tie a bow, then you are obviously welcome to do that. I just really struggle with bow making, and this is the way I found works best for me. Alright, so now we're going to trim the ends. This one's actually going to stick behind, but that's okay. Okay, so there is that. Then I can turn it right side up. I'm going to take my scallop circle and my spotlight cutout, and I'm going to attach those together using my glue. Oops, I didn't stick it back in its holder like I should have. I like to keep my glue in a holder that keeps it sitting this way, and it seems like to me that keeps the glue in the right spot for attaching it. Alright, and so this needs to go in the center, and the scallop circle is just the tiniest bit larger than the regular circle. Okay, so those are attached. I can move my Stampin' Pierce mat because I'm not going to pierce anything else at this point. I'm not going to stamp anything else either. I'm going to try and turn my bow just a little bit. And then on the back of it looks like I must have tied my other bow the other way. Well, it's all right. Okay, so I'm going to add some Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm at the end of these ones, and so I've cut all the way around the edges to make the most use of my dimensionals. So once you get to the end where all the little hexagons are gone, you can cut around the edges and still use them. Alright, so I'm going to line up my flower. I'm actually going to move this bow out of the way a little bit. And line this up so that I lined it up so that this leaf matched. That was the best way for me to figure it out. So there is our spotlight piece. then we're going to add our sentiment, and I'm going to use up the rest of these dimensionals here. Okay, so this is what the regular ones look like, and then you can just cut the edges and use all those little pieces too. That way we aren't wasting all those little pieces around the edge. And they work just the same. You still just peel off the back. And then we can put this right here. I'm going to turn it over and put some more dimensionals on the back. I used a lot of dimensionals on this card. And then I have these mini ones right here next to me, so I'll just use those. There we go. I might actually use a couple extra because they're just little tiny ones. That'll help keep my card front supported so it stays up away from my base. Okay, and then we're going to turn it over. And the nice part is we are going to cover up all that spot where I put the glue by accident. I'm going to line it up so that it's in the middle. Just like that. Make sure it's all pressed down. And then at the very end, I added some of these elegant faceted gems. I think these are really pretty. There's 3 different colors. This one's kind of a sparkly silver maybe, and this one is clear, and this one's kind of champagne color. So we're just going to add a few of those. Now the first one, I added the clear one, so I think I'll use the sparkly ones this time. And I'm just using my take your pick tool to pick them up, the sticky end. And if you just give them a little push, they slide right off their backing, but keep their sticky part. So I think I'll put one right here. Maybe a large one over here. Actually, yeah, maybe right there. Sometimes it's the hardest to decide where they should go. I don't know. I'm going to put one up here in the corner. 2, 3, 4. Let's see. Let's put one more so that we have an odd number. Let's maybe just put it right over here. There we go. Alright, so that is our card for today. Let me hold it up so you can get a good look at it. So here are today's cards, and I think they turned out really pretty. You can see they're little sparkly dots, but this is called the spotlight technique. When you highlight one area with color and the rest is kind of black and white or monotone, and I think they turned out nice. So if you want to order anything to make these cards, you can visit aliciadolan.stampinup.net, and if you use this host code by the end of the month, I will send you your own pack of these genial gems. No, elegant faceted gems. I used the genial gems last week. I forgot about that. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks everyone for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, you could give it a like and a share, and it'll be available on YouTube to be watched anytime. And then I'll put all the measurements and the supplies in the description. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great week.